lots of ways to add character voices to your stories. One thing you can do is just tell stories over and over and over again. Usually for me, by the 4th or 5th or 6th retelling of a story, often one or two of the characters will have character voices. They just sort of show up as you're performing the story. But if you wanted to add those voices from the beginning, you can do that as well. Now, don't worry about having to find the right voice for a character. All you really need to have is the one that feels right to you. So animals are really simple. So start with animal voices. If you think of a very small creature like a mouse or a chipmunk, we generally think small animals with a very fast heart rate probably have high squeaky voices. And so we'll talk with a really, really high voice to be these small animals. We also think about animals that are small with that fast heart rate talking more quickly than the bigger animals. So while a mouse might say something like, "Hello, my name's Mr. Mouse, and I like to travel all over the house, and I like to run around, and I really, really like to eat cheese." A bigger animal like a bear might say, "Oh, yeah, I'm a bear. I'm a bear, and I like to eat berries." That's how we got our name, you know, Bear, Berry. So generally, the smaller the animal, the higher and faster the voice. The bigger the animal, the deeper and slower the voice is going to be. I usually only choose maybe one or at most two animals or characters in a story to get a special voice. Get more than that and it gets more complicated. It's hard to keep one voice from the other. I also usually choose a secondary character for that character voice. That way I talk in the voice of the main character as my regular storytelling voice, and a secondary character, a co-star, has the special voice. Now in terms of people voices, usually I just try to think of what makes sense. So if I have a villain character, for instance, I might talk in sort of a nasally kind of voice, sort of like, "Well, what do you think about that?" And I scrunch up my nose and scrunch up my eyes, and that sort of makes that nasally villain character voice come out. But if that doesn't seem like a villain voice to you, feel free to create your own. Again, there's no right or wrong way to create character voices. You just need to do what makes sense to you. A lot of times, actually, watching cartoons can be some good research in this area. Especially for animal voices or villains, watch a few cartoons. Especially the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons that were really popular in the 70s and 80s. The characters on those cartoons will give you a sense of a wide range of voices, and you'll probably find something that fits. Now don't be surprised if while you're telling stories, a voice just sort of shows up as you're telling a story. I had a Ross Perot sort of voice show up once in one of my stories, and it's still there. It was one of the grandfather spiders in my version of the Itsy Bitsy Spider story. But that's okay too, because if this voice works for you, it'll probably work for your audience. You just got to remember to keep on trying. Now in terms, we talked a little bit about fast voices for small animals and slower voices for bigger animals. One other thing you can think about is the speed that the animal moves. So snails and turtles, we imagine, move slowly physically. Being cold-blooded creatures, they might also think more slowly than mammals. And so turtles, for instance, might, even though they're relatively small creatures, have a fairly low and slow voice. For instance, Rabbit looked over at the turtle and said, "Turtle, you can't have a race with me. You're way too slow." Turtle looked back and said, "Slow? No. This is as fast as I go." Again, you don't need to work hard on your character voices. If you tell a story 4 or 5 or 6 times in a 2 or 3 week period, the voice will probably just start showing up naturally. That's what happens when we tell stories. But if you want to add them in, that's fine as well. This is Kevin Strauss giving you another StoryLibrary.org storytelling workshop.